communication was simple. Maybe it wasn't easy if you were on a party line. If you don't know what a party line is, Google it. Um, and now there's probably hundreds of ways that we can communicate. Hi, I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
And I'm Barbara Menino.
And on this episode of Soapbox Wisdom, we're talking about all the different ways that we as business owners can communicate, but also at how people are communicating with us. But before we dive into that, I want to remind you to like and share this episode of Soapbox Wisdom with your community. So, Barbara, this topic is one that I chose, and it's for many reasons. I mean, okay, so I'm a tech person. I get these things, but I think our audience needs to hear what we're going to be talking about. Now, I have a bunch of notes on this, so hopefully we'll get through all of it. But but the technology, when all of this has been developed, it really was to make communication swift and easy. And I have to wonder how much of our audience believes that.
Well, I guess that depends when you talk technology on how technology savvy people are. I would add another word to that, swift and easy. And that talks about the user, the one who's originating a communication, but also on the end of the receiver, I want to include the words personal, human, as a customer or a person in your organization. I matter to you. I come first because maybe you're choosing a communication platform or modality that is really my preference and then is easier for me to receive.
Well, it starts with the user end now, Barbara. So it has to
Right?
be easy for the user. And I get that. We tend to want to use what works for us the best. But I can't tell you how many times I've received communication in some form. I see it on my phone and I don't respond right away. And then I sit down at my computer and I'm like, where did I see that message? Was that an email? Was it a text? And I've lost time looking for what I had seen on my phone. Has that ever happened to you?
Many a time I saw something someplace and then my mind can't quite place where that someplace was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess the first lesson here is respond right away, or make a note somewhere of come back to this application to respond, because there are so many different ways that we can communicate. So it starts with the phone. So you can make a phone call, you can do a text message. If you're making a phone call, then you got the voicemail. So that's three things right there with your phone. You got the social media messaging apps. With Facebook, it's instant message. With LinkedIn, there's messaging. Now, with Facebook, the instant messaging comes right through. And if you have that app on your phone, you're going to see that. Some people don't have that. But then with LinkedIn, and I was discussing this with a client one time, explaining that when you leave a message in LinkedIn, yes, it goes to an email, but like there's no alert somewhere, and it's not as easy to find on LinkedIn, those messages. um, and then there's the group stuff. Oh my God, the applications for group stuff. If you're working with somebody, or just in a coaching, because some people use Slack, some people use Telegram. I was talking about that earlier. I'm talking fast, Barbara, because there are just so many applications. It's like, what do we do? Now, I'm one. I things. And again, I have Slack on my phone, which I do use because of a program I'm in, and I do find it handy to use on my computer and on my phone. I got into Marco Polo the other year because of a program I'm in. Haven't used it since. Telegram, oh, that's been there a couple of years. It's still on my phone because I attended a 3-day event and they're like, and you have to have Telegram because we're going to be communicating with you. This is this is tiring. It's like all these different applications, but let's discuss from the sender point of view. Let's start there. Of we as the sender of communications, what we need to think about in how we choose to communicate. What are your preferences, Barbara, as a sender? What do you tend to?
That's very interesting because I used to prefer email. And now I'm talking about technology applications or platforms. So I used to prefer email. But as I've been receiving more and more texts, I would say over the last year, with people communicating business information, asking me to do something, asking me to attend a meeting, etc., I have come to really enjoy text. It is quick and easy to pick up on your phone, and I can also pick it up on my computer. It's easy for a response, and I'm very comfortable with that. I've used Marco Polo. That's an intriguing one because it can be group, it can be one-to-one. Again, it's very instant, so quick and easy, the two words you said at the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, when I get a text, I feel it's mine, that a person has written to me, them to me. And it's very nice. I like that feel.
Yes, and yes, it is to you. However, I am aware of there are technologies that you can do mass text messaging and make it look personal, just like email.
I
Um,
know.
but
However, again, perception, right?
mhm,
I
mhm.
understand that you can do mass, but it's the perception.
hmm Well, and there too, there's different reasons to be communicating. One is starting with the one-to-one communication, saying it's, to your client that you needed to communicate or to a specific prospect. But then there is the marketing aspect where you are communicating with a group of people. So those are two different maybe it's even two different ways of using the technology, the one to one and the one to many. Now, my issue with the text messaging is when somebody sends me, say, content. I coordinate some speakers for a women's group here. And if I'm asking for say a bio and talk information, and they send it to me in a text, and I'm sitting here on my phone saying, isn't this nice? But I got to get it over there to the website. And I'm
Right?
like, so now it was easy for them to send it to me. Isn't that nice? But now I have to take this information from a text message and move it to a platform that I can actually work with it.
That is why I have also set up texting on my laptop because it gives me the capability to very comfortably copy and paste into a Word document and then work with it. I do agree that when you receive it on your phone, you're dealing with a tiny space, and it really is harder to copy it and paste it than it is on a computer.
Well, and that's why I believe in Google Forms. So if you can create a form for people to fill in information, and that way it's easy for them and it's easy for you on the other end to receive that information. I know one time I was speaking with somebody about a podcast they were going to be launching, and they were saying about the information they would gather, and I said, well, do you have a form to submit that information? Oh, I wouldn't use. Oh, set up a form. Oh my goodness, that's just too complicated. I was like, yes, in the very beginning, it's not easy. Anything in the beginning is not easy. Let me just a sidebar here, Barbara. So recently I was talking with a client of mine who recently launched their podcast. I'm helping them to launch their podcast. And in the very beginning, this person was stressed and overwhelmed. That was 2 months ago. Now, when they have a couple episodes done, they're like, wow, yeah, I was stressed out then. They're saying it's like, but now I'm okay with it because now I've done it a few times and I get it. I want the audience to understand you need to work with these technologies on a regular basis or whatever it is you're doing. Everything is hard in the beginning. Yeah, okay, so I shouldn't say everything, but frustration is easy to set in with whatever we do. We just have to keep doing it. It's like speaking, and people are afraid to speak in front of a group. Do it a few times, and you turn around and say, "Wow, that was easy." Because you're not, yeah. So that's just the
Well,
side part.
I absolutely agree with that. I remember when I started going from pen and paper to a computer. And I remember having someone come to my house and teach me certain things about the computer. And I took copious notes, but wasn't until I really mixed it up and used it consistently that it became part of me. And that it did become easier. Something that you mentioned there with the Google form and the reaction of, oh, that's so hard. I do believe, again, mindset comes into everything. Yes, understanding that something is going to be challenging at first and you're going to conquer it. Two, understanding that there might be a better way of doing things, a way that puts the people with whom you're interacting, typically your clients and customers, that puts them first. And that's very important in this day and age. It used to be that the customer is always right. And that statement, I think, has morphed into the customer is always first. And that you have to remember that on every step of the customer journey. Right. So that's a very important point to consider when you're looking at ways to improve the communication you have with your clients.
Yeah. Well, and a little addition to all this, what keeps coming up for me is as the sender of communications, when it's one-to-one communications and you've been relying on, well, I sent them an email, I sent them a text message, and I didn't get a response. If you have a phone number, well, you have a phone number if you sent a text message. Make a phone call. I've been guilty of this over the years. I've heard other people with kind of the same problem of, well, I sent them this, I sent them that. Did you pick up the phone? Because the phone's going to ring on the other end. Okay. And even if they don't answer, there's voicemail. They will have seen that you tried to call them. But I think we've just gotten so comfortable hiding from actually talking with people.
I think it's also that we all have this perception that we have to go at 1,000 miles an hour, and we perceive that a phone call would be interruptive to that. But you're absolutely right. What is wrong with picking up the phone and making a call? It's yet another layer of communication, and it should be overlooked.
Yeah. And from the sender point of view, what is your feeling? I know what I just want to get your reaction first of when somebody says, this is my primary method of communication. If you want to get a hold of me, this is whether it's a text message, it's rarely email. I have to say it's rarely email is best for the marketing. But what are your thoughts when somebody just wants to be adamant on, if you want to communicate with me, this is how you have to do it?
Well, my first thought is that there should be no adamants, if that's a word. Again, your customer comes first. Business isn't the shoulder shrug of matter of factness and just business. It's more than just business. And if you understand that good relationships are at the basis of all customer relationships, and then further understand that communications is one of the most important components of building that relationship, then your job is to go the extra mile. Even if you don't know that a person prefers email to text or text to email or Slack to something else, choose several different channels and attempt to reach out to them on those channels so that one way or another you will get their attention in a way that's comfortable for them. Customer first. And at the end of the day, if you're still getting crickets and you're still striking out, then pick up your cell phone or your landline and give them a shout on the phone.
Well, what about if it's a situation where it's not so much a customer situation? We're all out there networking and speaking and, doing various things, being involved in organizations. What if it's something other than communicating with a client or a prospect? And you're working with somebody on, say, a special project or something like that. What are your feelings in that situation when somebody says, well, I don't even look at my email, so you got to send me an instant message, or and that then it's like, oh, let me get to my CRM and write that note down, only communicate with this. If it's this type of communication, I have to do it this way. If it's this for the, I don't know what.
Well, it's this. I feel the principle is the same. So if you look at it from the perspective of having a position of leadership, say, for example, in an organization, and you're trying to round people up or reach out to some person to request a special task or get their opinion or feedback on something, it's the same thing in an organization, whether it's a business networking group or what have you. You're striving for inclusion. You want to make everyone in that organization feel valued. So trying to reach out to them in a number of different ways will hit the mark, should make them feel more valued, should make them feel more apart, should make them pay attention to what you're requesting or commenting on, etc. So I don't think really there's much difference in the way you treat clients and the way you treat people in the organizations in which you're involved. People first.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I've just been so open to different technologies that I've been willing to give them a try. And I do observe. I'm an observer of where I get responses the easiest from, and I'm not a perfect communicator by any means. I mean, like I said in the very beginning, though, my problem though is when I see something on my phone and don't respond right away, and they're like, oh no, where did that go? And from the receiver perspective of all this incoming stuff, I think we need to be a little more forgiving. um, like I say, email marketing is still one of the best ways to communicate, especially when it's quality content, not sending your list something every day of the week to stay in there. No, 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 no. I do not believe in that. Um, but on the receiver end, we need to be a little bit more forgiving and accepting of how we're receiving information from the people that we have chosen to be in their sphere of influence. I do get text messages from something that I'm involved in, and the woman said, "This is how I communicate." I'm okay with that because it's not overdone. And that's the thing too. When you overdo the communications, yeah, you're going to turn people off. Um, but it troubles me though when people are more apt to unsubscribe from a list or stop text messaging from people they actually know. Do you, versus I'm imagining how many communications come in from all the different stores that people shop at and things that they buy online and news stuff. But the people that are in their sphere, it's easier to unsubscribe from them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Please, audience, please share your thoughts on this because I'm really curious. Maybe I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole here.
I don't. That's very interesting because I don't really unsubscribe to too much.
Well, Barbara, that gets because you're Barbara and you're wonderful.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm intrigued by the way people communicate. As a writer, storyteller, content creator, communication is my, what is it?
Mhm.
Is it my jam? And so I'm very interested in the way people communicate. And part of this discussion does involve that. What is your tone? What is your voice? What is the salutation of a message if you're speaking to women who are over 50 and contemplating the next steps in their professional lives versus professional women who are in the throes of climbing the career ladder? What is the difference between communicating with people that you know so well, and you might start with that, "Hey there, so and so," versus someone that you don't know as well, where you feel you have to be a little more formal and it might be a good morning? So I'm very conscious of the way things are expressed, the words used, the formality or lack of it. Um, the creative way things are said, and the tone, uh, and also what I take away, what's the personality of the individual writing to me. So I think these are important pieces of the communication process as well that folks have to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think all of that does depend also on what method you're using, what tech tool you are communicating with. Uh,
Yes, I agree.
I think an instant message on Facebook is going to come through differently than when you send an email. So just like the different social media platforms. Well, on this platform, this is the type of post you need, and over here, this is the type of post and content that you need. So with how what the tech tools that we're using, it depends, what it is and how we need to use it. Um, but I want the audience to be a little bit more open, and yeah, we can't accept all the tools absolutely, and I think I need to remove a few from my phone, just to clean things up a bit again. Because if it's not being used, what's the point? Um,
Years ago, this used to bug me on the good old iPhone, where I would get an email from someone and it would say, I don't know, "Please excuse spelling errors because I'm using my phone." And again, as a writer, that used to make me see red because, again, it shows a lack of intention to put your best foot forward and communicate well with another individual. Um, and I hope that with technology, life hasn't just become an abbreviation.
Mm.
Just as we say, you can still pick up the phone. Face to face is still important. Print still has its place. So these are all methodologies that we shouldn't overlook, even though we are living in a digital world. And the fact is, because the world is so digital and so fast-paced and so filled with noise, people deep down are still looking for that human connection, so that it makes a difference. How you communicate suggests you communicate several different ways. The tone with which you're communicating. People first, customers first, colleagues first. And that builds better relationships.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, Christine, do you feel we have covered practically everything there is to say about communication?
Oh, I'm sure I'm missing something, but we don't want this to go on for an hour now.
We'll wake up tomorrow morning and say, oh, I should have said that. But I think you all get the gist. Communication is important. Be open to the different platforms, channels, styles. And make sure, above all, that you keep communicating with your clients, your customers, your colleagues. And also be sure that you tune in again for our next episode of Soapbox Wisdom.
Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and